Board of Commissioners meeting. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry for our start late. At this point, we're going to head right into public participation. If you'd like to come up and make comments, please do now. You also have a chance to come up before each and every public vote tonight.
Good evening. Ken Taylor, Willow Avenue in Wayne. First, I want to congratulate the board on all the good work it's done over this year. You're going to be working on a budget, the likes of which, as far as transparency and reality, would have been something only dreamed of just several years ago. And I congratulate the board on all of its efforts in that regard. I hate to task you with something else, but going into the new year, I'm here to speak on behalf of all of my neighbors on the south side of Willow Avenue and all other Radnor residents who live in the area affected by the ever-worsening floodplain waters that emanate from the township. As you well know, the township uses natural water courses to extract and pass its stormwater, the predominant portion of which comes from the township streets that we use to navigate our way around this township, into natural water courses, and those water courses happen to be located in the floodplains that they also inundate are located on private property, including mine. And this township goes out of its way to handle trash in a manner we wouldn't allow trash to be deposited upon someone else's land. We have a very good system at taxpayer expense to deal with trash. Likewise, sewer eminences, we wouldn't allow those to be passed onto a neighbor's property. We have participate in a multi-municipality sewer system, and we bill accordingly based on usage. And I would encourage this board in the next year to kickstart and again restart the effort to bring in the public to start working along with staff on a workable, fair stormwater utility. That utility should be assessed based upon an actual impact. Someone with a very small property should not be paying the same per household charge as somebody with a large property. We may not need to go so far and at the kind of expense that Philadelphia has in actually mapping and delineating property by property the impervious surface totals. But we do have a method to be a little more equitable than a per household charge, such as using the tax records of the county have lot dimensions. There's a good start, and that's not going to cost the township a heck of a lot, and it would be difficult to challenge that as long as the per square foot charge was uniform throughout all the township. But we know we've got the problems. The Chagrin study, once again, reiterated and updated a lot of what needs to be done in this township. We know that it's I think we know that the way to go about it is not through, again, burdening the capital improvements budget, but to work on with the citizens so there can be universal backing, a fair and equitable stormwater utility, that those funds will be lockboxed away and used only to start to implement on a perhaps on a basis that this board would decide on how to prioritize the recommended Chagrin projects. But I encourage you in the coming year that this is something that we've got to see. We've got a lot of people who are very stressed and are having to pay for stormwater management in the form of ever-increasing flood insurance and ever-increasing incidences of damage to items in their basements and surrounding their properties. And just like this board has been responsive as to protecting the citizens from matters requiring police protection, trash removal, sewage, I'd ask this board to step up and protect the kind of people that I live by, who are basically having their properties used to exit this problem and to help the rest of the citizens of this township deal with this problem. And we need to start implementing programs to help those folks out. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. On that topic, the Board of Commissioners will be planned to meet on January 18th to discuss stormwater quality management. And we'll also have, I think it's Chagrin Valley that will be coming in to present to us the findings of the report from last year. So, thank you. At this point, I'll move it on I see no other public participation. The Board of Commissioners met in executive session just prior to this meeting. All commissioners were present. We discussed matters of litigation, personnel, and real estate. At this point, I want to have the approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting for December 5th.
Move to be
2011.
approved.
Any commissioner comment? Okay, seeing none. Any public comment on the minutes for December 5th? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
I abstain, I was not at the meeting.
6-0 with one abstention by Commissioner Nagel. We have acceptance of a donation for tree planting and maintenance from Chanticleer. I see Bill Thomas is here. He's going to come up.
Good evening. On the behalf of the board and staff of Chanticleer, a Pleasure Garden, I would like to salute Radnor Township for its beautiful open spaces and towering trees. Our founder, Adolph Rosengarten Jr., loved trees and planted many in his garden. The Chanticleer Foundation has supported tree planting and care in Radnor for 2 decades. And tonight I would like to present the township with a check from the Chanticleer Foundation in the amount of $12,000 to be used for the planting and care of trees within the township.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank
Much
you.
appreciated.
Bill, that's an increase from last year, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that was acknowledged.
I'm going to leave this right up here to make sure that Bill grabs this on the way out today.
I'd just like to say how grateful we all are for this. This support from Chanticleer has been really generous and really consistent over the last many, many years. And the residents really appreciate it. It's for many years, this important, planting and maintenance of trees has been, in our lean years, has suffered from some budget cuts, and this money has really helped get us through those lean years, and in good years really helps us do some proactive planting and planning, which, coming off the last public comment, is a great way to control your stormwater. So again, everyone is, on behalf of all the residents, we are so grateful for this continuous and generous donation and for giving back to the community like this. Thank you.
Yes. And we started in 1993, Chris Wood, with a $4,000 donation, and you've contributed over $100,000 to plant like 1,500 trees in Radnor. We certainly appreciate it.
I also just want to mention that Bill serves on the Shade Tree Commission as well, which is worth even more money than you could ever give, that expertise on our board. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, thanks again to Chanticleer for all the help. And certainly the 7th Ward looks a lot better with all the street trees from your donations. Thank you. All right, at this point, I'll move to approve the 2012 meeting schedule that's has been presented to the Board of Commissioners for approval.
Second?
I'd like to make a change. The meeting identified on August 6th should be changed to August 20th. So I motion that change.
Second.
Is that correct, Bob? Is there any reason you had it on 6?
Okay, any public comment on the schedule? Okay, we'll vote on the amendment first. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries 7-0. And then we'll go ahead and vote on the approval. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, we have the departmental reports. Do you have a motion on that?
Move we accept departmental reports?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Nagel. Any comments? Get my pile caught up here. Okay, I have no, well, my only comment is I want to thank all staff, all directors and all staff of the township for the hard work they did in this past year. I've tried to highlight a few times this year all the hard work that everyone does. It really is incredible. If you look at the thousands of items that each department handles each month to the satisfaction of the public, and in the pursuit of making this a great place to live. So I want to thank all of you for your hard work, and I want to wish you all a happy holiday and a happy New Year, because I don't think we'll be meeting again until then. So I want to thank you all. So I want to thank you in public. Thank you. All right, so I'll go ahead and any public comment on the reports? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0 to accept the reports. At this point, we'll head into the committee reports. Under Personnel Administration, we have Resolution 2011-155, acknowledging Commissioner Harry Mahoney for 16 years of service as a commissioner. I think it's 16, Hank. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Hank has served endlessly for many years in this township. And I'll tell you, I just completed my first term, and I'm very happy to complete my first term. So you're probably 4 times as happy as I am to complete your 4th. But personally, from me, I want to thank you for all your service to the township and to this board, for the hard work that you've done and the expertise that you bring to this board. I'm going to go down to the podium, and you're going to have to come down with me for this one. So.
I'll move the introduction of the resolution.
Second.
I'll read the resolution. Resolution 2011-155, a resolution of Radnor Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, commending Commissioner Harry G. Mahoney for his service with Radnor Township. Whereas Commissioner Harry G. Mahoney has represented Ward 1 of Radnor Township since 1995. And whereas Commissioner Mahoney served as president of the Board of Commissioners from October 2003 to December 2008, and whereas Commissioner Mahoney's current term will expire December 31st, 2011. Now therefore be hereby resolved that the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners does hereby thank and commend Commissioner Mahoney for his years of service to the residents of Radnor Township, so resolved this 12th day of December 2011. Thank you, Hank.
Hank, before you get a chance to speak, I certainly want to thank you for the 16 years that we spent together. That's because I'm a kind of excitable guy, and you helped keep me calm a lot of times. And one of the things that you taught me was that we could disagree on a lot of issues and work on the issues we agree upon, and not take it personal. A lot of people in politics can't do that, and I appreciate the lesson that you gave to me and gave the community on that. Ted Powell and I fought a lonely battle trying to get the trail done, and Ted lost his election, and you won, but you came right on board, and you helped fight that lonely battle for the trail for a couple of years till we got everybody on board to get the trail done, and now everybody recognizes it's a tremendous thing that you helped accomplish. And of course, your contribution to the open space here in Radnor, we had a lot of open space discussions, and you were in the forefront of doing that. And I certainly appreciate everything you've done, and I'm sorry that some people have called you a Democrat now and then, because you and I voted together on a lot of issues. No one ever called me a Republican, but a few people have accused
yeah, they
you.
did.
A few people have accused you of that, but certainly it was a great 16 years, and if you want to go on the Civil Service Commission or something, just let us know, and we can work that out. Thank you, Hank, for your service.
And also, we'd be remiss if we don't thank Jean for those same 16 years, because although maybe she was happy to have you out of the house. Not really sure.
And Hank,
Thanks,
I also
Gene.
want to thank you for being so responsive and helpful, and your demeanor in the board has always been something very admirable that we can look up to, so thank you.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate it.
If I could add my 2 cents, I have always admired, when I was a resident there and now these 2 years on the board, I've always admired your quiet leadership and your very measured and thoughtful way of considering issues. And I think you are a great example, and I would like to would hope that I can emulate, and I hope that my colleagues all can follow the example that you've set for us in your composure and treating your colleagues and residents with respect at all times, whether you agree with them or not. it's been very admirable to watch, and I hope that we can carry that tradition on. So good luck to you in your next endeavors.
Thank you, appreciate it. If I could just take a minute or two of your time, and I realize we have a busy agenda, but there are a couple of people that I'd like to thank who have contributed to these 16 years, and obviously first and foremost would be the residents of the First Ward, my friends and neighbors up there who saw fit to elect me back in 1995. I've truly enjoyed public service, and I think I leave the First Ward in very good hands with Jim Higgins, who's sitting out here in the audience, who was the commissioner before I was, and talking about emulating somebody, I tried to fashion myself after Jim Higgins, because I thought he was a fabulous commissioner then, and he will be starting in January. I also want to thank my family. My wife Jean and daughter Maura are in the audience. I do have a funny little story about Maura, which tells you about some of the work that we used to have to do here at the township. Maura was 2 years old when I got elected, and when she was about 5 or 6, I came rushing in from the office, wolfed down some dinner real quickly, Maura sitting in her high chair, and as I went running out the door to a township meeting, Maura looked up and said, "Thanks for stopping by, Dad." So it's sort of indicative of the sacrifices that my family made to allow me to do this job, and I truly have enjoyed it. I want to thank the volunteers of the various boards and commissions. Volunteerism in Radnor Township is alive and well. I'm glad to see that the volunteering of time and effort and expertise continues on to this very day, and will so in the future. To my fellow commissioners, thank you for the kind words. I really, truly appreciate it. We haven't always agreed on things, but we've done so with respect and civility, and I'm sure that tradition will continue. To the township staff, manager, and department heads, thanks for everything you do for us. You make us look good on days when we're not. So I thank you for that. John Rice, thank you for coming aboard when you did. We needed your steady hand as a solicitor. I would like, but most of all, to thank the township employees, because they're the people who day in and day out run this organization. They're out in the middle of the night fixing sewer leaks, cutting down trees that have taken down power lines, things of that nature. And without those folks doing that job day in and day out, this township couldn't deliver the first-rate municipal services that it does. So, Mike, if you would please take back to your members, Chief to the rank and file, the police, and Bob to the non-union members, my heartfelt appreciation as one commissioner for the incredible hard work that they have done over the years, and I know that it will continue into the future. And thank you very much for this. I appreciate it.
John, the motion was made and seconded. Okay.
Now, Hank, we give you that with one condition. You do have to stay till the end of the meeting tonight, so.
Yeah, so let's get to work.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries
I'll abstain.
6-0. One abstention. Thanks, Hank. Resolution 2011-147 is an agreement entering into a disability retirement agreement with Officer Monroe. This is a personnel matter, but all personnel matters do have to be approved in public, but we do generally not discuss these because of their sensitive nature. At this point, I'll open up to...
I'll move the approval of the resolution.
I think I still have to open up to public comment, but public comment, seeing none. Well, go ahead.
Well, I move the approval of the resolution.
Second. Now, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Then public.
We will not have commissioner comment unless someone has comment, but public comment, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. That's it under Personnel Administration, Public Safety, Commissioner Mahoney.
The first item on the agenda is Resolution 2011-154 regarding authorizing the purchase for 4 pay and display parking kiosks. Superintendent?
Yes, Commissioner. We put it out to bid, and the bid came in at $42,540. That also includes the installation. If we get these kiosks, 2 would go at the Bellevue lot, 1 would go at the South Wayne lot, and 1 would be a combination between the Waynewood and Luella lot. And it will be more cost-effective and more efficient, not only for Radnor Township, but also for the residents that use parking here.
I'll second.
Board comment?
Yeah, Bob?
Is this a different manufacturer than the Philadelphia ones, or do you know?
It's a different manufacturer,
Okay.
but they're basically the same, the way they look and the way they're constructed.
And-
They are solar-powered.
They're solar powered?
Yes, they are.
And haven't they had a whole lot of trouble with them in Philadelphia, or no?
Well,
Is that just
originally,
rumor?
I think the biggest problem was with the usage by people that were not familiar with them.
Okay.
But they got the
User
bugs
error.
out, and I think the first couple of years, but now they're no problem at all.
Okay.
And the good thing, too, Commissioner, as you know, you could use cash, you could use prepaid cards, you could use credit cards, so the residents won't have to fumble around looking for quarters or whatever the case may be.
Great.
Will the RECT pay for any of this?
What we're looking to do is not transfer those funds to the enhancement trust and use those funds that we would transfer for the purchase of these units.
Bill, what percent do you expect to be paid on credit cards?
It's hard to say, Commissioner. I guess it depends on the individual, but usually when people get used to these kiosks, they usually use their card as opposed to cash.
Do they have a higher yield than a meter? Because a credit card company's going to charge you a fee for processing.
The kiosks would be a higher yield because people will tend to over-purchase the amount of time they need.
Bill, others of these that I've seen have a minimum amount before you can use a credit card. I assume ours is going to be set up the same way.
That's correct, Commissioner. Each one of them can be programmed according to our specifications.
All right, public comment on Resolution 2011-154? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 7 to none.
Item number D is off our agenda, and that's it for public safety.
Thank you, Commissioner Mahoney. Commissioner Higgins, Finance and Audit.
First item on the agenda is schedule of bills payable and disbursements identified as number 2011-12B, the grand total of $2,628,161.97. And these bills have been approved by the respective department heads and are within the budgetary limits imposed for 2011. So I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any board comment?
Yes, please note my recusal on the line items involving office basics.
Recusal noted. Any other board comment? Any public comment on the scheduled bills payable? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7 to none with Commissioner Curley's recusal on office basics.
Next item on the agenda is ordinance 2011-26, adoption of the final budget for fiscal year 2012 and establishing the millage rate and sewer fees. The proposed millage rate is 3.7511, which was a little bit of above a 3% increase. Bill, do you remember exactly what it is? I don't have that right in front of me.
The percentage?
Yeah.
3.02.
Okay. The sewer fee is $5.74 per 1,000 gallons, and there will be approved separately a proposed user service and other fees for 2012. Bob, Bill, any comments?
Just the one update from the November 28th meeting. What was being discussed and reviewed that night was version 2 of the manager's recommendation. Since that time, as a result of some of the discussions that took place regarding some of the vacant positions and pushing those higher dates back, we went back into the budget, incorporated those measures in, Specifically, we have 2 police officers, vacant positions there. The replacements were moved back to April 1. There's a vacant economic development position that was moved back to July 1, a higher date moved back. The rental housing, the full-time rental housing inspector was moved back to April 1, as well as the part-time budget was reduced to reflect only 75%, which would be similar to an April 1st, 2012 date, higher date. We also incorporated the open enrollment for the township ended just before November 11th when the original budget was submitted. So since that time, we were able to calculate those numbers and incorporate those in. There was a net savings with those, albeit it wasn't tremendous, but there was some net savings there. There was also a correction in the workers' compensation insurance formula that was corrected. And then finally, one of the requests that was made was the inclusion in the line item detail part of the budget that there's a 2011 original budget, then there's the 2011 budget that as amended, and then a full year 2011 forecast column to help with the comparison from years to years. So that was incorporated in. And in doing so, we reevaluated some of the Act 511 revenues. And as you'll note, if you look at the monthly report, some of the 511 revenues are coming in slightly under what was estimated. And when I say slightly, just a few $1,000s. So it threw off the forecast for next year, so we amended those as well. Included in the budget document itself, in the supplemental information, was a reconciliation of all the things that changed between the 2 versions. In total, there was about $358,000 in revenues that were taken out, most of which was on the business privilege Act 511 tax side, which is about a 4% reduction in what we originally thought. But those reductions were offset by about $390,000 in expenditure reductions from the savings of those different positions and incorporating open enrollment and those types of things. So if there's any questions on those specific items, I'd be more than happy to address them.
Well, I have a couple of questions, but first let me say that I am really happy with and satisfied and support this budget. I think it's really well done, and I've spent a lot of time with it, going through it. Not as much time as you have, I'm sure, but I'm very happy with it. I think it's conservative. The revenue projections are conservative, which makes me happy. I think that's a great way to move forward, and hopefully we'll end up with a surplus at the end of the year for being conservative, which we have for the last couple of years. I have a couple of questions. This is just really out of curiosity. The numbers in the monthly report at the end of, where you forecast the year-end number are slightly different than the forecast numbers in the budget. And I couldn't really quite figure out why.
The primary reason is that they were done at 2 different times.
So just
I did the
different
monthly
days and-
report first,
Okay.
and then went back.
A couple days later.
And once November was completely reconciled, then we had a couple days in December. So mostly the forecast numbers are changing
Right.
by the week. So.
Okay. As you mentioned, the business privilege forecast is now a little bit lower, so the projections for next year are lower, which I think is very wise. A couple of things I wanted to ask about. On the expenditure side, we have our expenses for this year are pretty high, especially the labor litigation side, or the labor attorney side. But next year we have them going back down. I think this year we were forecasting spending about $100,000, and then next year, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but for the forecast is for it to go significantly down, and I'm a little nervous about that because I'm not sure I see those issues going away.
Quite honestly, the specific numbers are, our forecast for 11 is 105,609, and we have 65,000 budgeted for next year at this
Right.
point. The increase that we realized or that we experienced this year was specific to very specific circumstances that are wrapping up. So it might be optimistic, but we're budgeting, hoping to avoid those same type of circumstances going into next year. So.
Okay. I also noticed that we budgeted for next year on the revenue side. Well, we had a very big increase in police fines this year, and we budgeted to keep that up. And I'm curious as to what that increase is from, and I assume that whatever it is going to be sustained if we're continuing that up again.
I will take the first stab at it, and Superintendent, correct me if I'm incorrect, but
So I think originally we had budgeted around 200,000 for police fines. It came in this year, or might come in around 435, 438. And next year, I think we're budgeting for more than 400,000 again. Is that from the extra hours of the parking enforcement?
Well, the extra hours for the parking enforcement, unfortunately, that individual has moved on to another position.
Oh.
One of the things we've done, we had another vehicle added for our traffic safety unit where they weigh the trucks. Also, we have the unmarked Dodge Charger, so we're anticipating increased revenue from those two particular vehicles.
Well, that's great work and great news. I mean,
We're
that's
hoping.
Yeah.
We're hoping.
Well, it's great news already for 2011. That's a great increase. Another question I had was about the pilot. We had an increase in our pilot for this year, and then we're not predicting to sustain that. Is that just because wherever we got that payment, we're not sure whether they're coming back, or?
the increase, let me pull down to that specific line. The increase this year was a result of a settlement with the Barack Academy as part of a
I
real
see.
estate tax
Uh-huh.
litigation. And the future years is, the other pilot that's included in there is the township's agreement with Valley
Uh-huh.
Forge, and that assumes that that continues on, and then plus what the settlement agreement with Barack would include for next year as well.
Great. And then my last question was about the RECT. I noticed that that was taken out, but I think we just heard that we took that out to cover the kiosks. Okay. Is that something that we had worked out with them, or no, not yet? Okay. All right. Well, I don't have any more comments. As I said, I'm pleased with this budget, and I support it, and I am thrilled with the direction that we're going in our budgeting and in our economic standing.
Bill, I just need a point of clarification. We're scheduled to consider a fund balance resolution tonight to allocate part of the excess fund balance, and I think about 30% of that money will go towards capital for 2012. Is that, I didn't have a chance to look at version 3, but I assume, has that capital infusion, is that showing in the current budget, or is that not showing in the current budget?
It is not shown in there.
So if we have an item that, like, for instance, under park and recreation facilities, we have a $250,000 capital expense, it says unfunded. Is that something we might consider funding?
Yeah, our intention was to address that item as well as the entire capital situation when we got together as part of the discussion items for next year. So
Okay.
at that point, yes.
So it's not,
that would be
it's
the
not
time to
earmarked
discuss
yet
it.
to what part of the capital needs, but,
Right, I didn't feel comfortable putting those exact numbers in yet. First of all, because the resolution hasn't passed yet, and second of all, because we don't know what the exact numbers are just yet, so.
alrighty. Well, I support the budget as it is. I think it's a work of art, in my opinion. A lot of due diligence was put into this, but a lot of craft as well. So I'm very supportive of the budget. I think it's a reasonable tax increase, and it's fiscally responsible too, because we've cut spending, millions of dollars of spending over the last 6 years, 4 years, and so therefore I will be supporting the budget as it is. Any other commissioner comment?
Yeah, I'm going to vote against it. I'd like us to be at 0. I think we could be at 0.
I think Bob and Bill, you have done a very nice job of, over the last couple of years, of really delivering an excellent product to us. And I think the 3% effort is a nice one. But I think you also proposed to us an alternative of 0%, which I'd be more inclined to support, given the fact that we're not really addressing some of the fundamental issues that we have to face till next year. So I'm in Don's camp of not supporting this.
All right, at this point, I'll move to adopt ordinance 2011-26.
Second?
Any further board discussion? Any public comment on ordinance 2011-26?
Mr. Fisher, you're adopting
John?
version 3. So the ordinance as it's been revised,
Yeah, let me get that. Sorry, I don't have it.
which you can do as long as the expenditures don't increase 10%, which they have not.
That's right. So we're adopting the ordinance 2011-26 at 3.7511 mils and $5.74 for 1,000 gallons of water usage on the sewage. Any public comment? Okay. Please, with a show of hands, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-2. This point, Kevin, you want to take on the next item?
Next item on the agenda is the consolidated fee schedule identified as 2011-27, outlining the fees last year and, this year and proposed for next year. So I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Tommy, I just had one question for my conflict of interest with the softball and the soccer fields. We paid $275, and most of our usage was at Radnor A and B. We moved to Donna the end of June, didn't use Clover that much. So our most of our usage was at the high school in April, May, June, July, and August. And is this fee going to be adjusted if we get a fee from the school district or something works out, or is this set for each team has to play this for whatever Radnor Township fields they were able to get?
Mr. Chairman, maybe if I'll answer that, I think that's something that we would discuss in next year.
Okay.
And then the board does have the right by resolution to be able to amend this schedule.
Okay.
So that'd probably be the best recommendation I would
Okay.
make on that.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I have two potential edits. On page 16, the sewer rent is listed at $5.57. I would assume we need to update that to reflect the current adoption of 2011-26. Okay, so I'll move to amend the sewer rent fee from $5.57 to $5.74.
Second?
Thank you.
There's one other thing, as you pointed out, John. It says see ordinance 2010-42. Does that need to be changed, John?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kevin, I didn't
It's
hear that.
referencing a 2010
Oh, yeah.
ordinance over on the left. The same thing John just observed in 2012 with the outdated fee. There's a reference to a 2010-42 ordinance in the...
So that would change to 2011-26.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll include that in my amendment.
Second.
To change it to say C 2011-26. Also, and this is not, page 25 under parking meter fines, it states parking meter fine $15 plus $25 for late permits. I think it means late payment. I think it may be a typo or I'm misunderstanding the topic. So this is page 25, and I apologize for not getting these. I just realized these yesterday. This is under parking meter fine. It says $15 plus $25 for late permits.
It's payments.
Payments.
Late payments. Okay, so I'll amend, I move to amend, as part of my motion, to amend that word from permits to payment.
Second.
Thank you. All right, I don't have any other comments. I think, again, the fee schedule makes a lot of sense under the conditions, financial conditions we're facing. And I see,
Well, I was uncomfortable with the new fee for athletics. However, at their most recent Parks Board meeting, we had asked the Parks Board to vote on that, and they unanimously agreed with it. Also, some discussions with Tammy and with some of the sports teams. They understand that we still have a lot of work to do with the school maintenance agreement going away, as what adjustments may have to be made and how we're actually going to allocate these fees.
John, you're referring to the field permitting fee on page 21 of 27?
No, the $10 or the $150, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had looked at alternative ways, and this seems to be, as it is, the most fair.
Well, I continue to be uncomfortable with having that fee in there until we understand what the new landscape of field use is going to be for our community sports organizations. My first preference would be to defer this until we have some sort of closure on how this is going to work out, but I know I'm a lone voice on that, so my second preference is that we revisit this at some point when the landscape is defined, and it's my understanding and my hope that if it does turn out to be burdensome in combination with whatever fees our teams are paying to other entities, that we revisit it and see if it needs changing.
any other board comment? Any public comment on ordinance 2011-27, setting the fee schedule? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call the vote on my last amendment first.
Well, why don't we vote on, it's all been, with all the changes suggested. Okay?
Yeah, that's fine. All right, so we'll just call a vote on the entire ordinance with the amendments as stated. All those in favor say aye and raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. 6-1, sorry. My brain's not working tonight. All right. Kevin Higgins?
Are you ready? Next item on the agenda is Resolution 2011-156, establishing a distribution of the excess fund balance above 15% for the years 2011 and 2012, and they are allocated as follows: 50% to compensated absence liabilities, 30% for the capital funding contribution, 10% each for both the other post-employment benefit liabilities and the pension liabilities, and that is pension liabilities in addition to the annual MMO. Bob or Bill, anything that you want to comment on that I didn't hit that you feel needs to be addressed?
The only other thing I would add to that is emphasizing that the policy is for 2011 and 12 only, that this is not intended to be a permanent policy, that during our discussions next year, more permanent solutions would be discussed and decided upon.
And it doesn't go as far as to lock us into escrow accounts or anything. That's intended to be covered during the discussions next year.
That is correct. The specific ways we go about it will come in front of the board next year.
Okay. So I make a motion to approve.
Second?
Bill, can I just, we had heard from CARFAC last meeting that I think the recommendation was to fund first capital and then with leftover or immediate capital needs and then move on to the other things. But I take it from this that you just have determined that our most urgent need and priority need is the compensated absences over and above is that correct?
That would be correct.
Yeah.
And I think because of that liability will come home to us here by no later than the end of 13.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an immediate need. And I think in the longer term here, More than likely, we will look to adjust that over the next year.
Okay.
The board to decide that, but I think knowing that we've got those liabilities coming at us here within the next 2 years.
But also in our capital budget for 2011, we have a lot of unfunded capital projects.
And that'll be determined by the board next year too, then, the priorities, which I believe comes up in January on the list.
Any further board comment? Any public comment? This is on Resolution 2011-156. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Next item on the agenda is Resolution 2011-157, the 2012 salary schedule, which proposes a 3% increase for the rate and police force consistent with their agreements, and a budgeted 3% wage increase for individuals who are not members of either, but that doesn't mean that they will actually get a 3%. It could be something less. It could be, I guess, Bob, somebody who does a really good job, could get something slightly more, but in the aggregate, for that pool of payroll, the increase would be no more than 3%. Is that
That's
accurate?
correct. That's correct. And it
And the
could be
total
less.
3% increase equates to approximately $265,000 in base wage adjustments. So I make a motion to approve.
Second?
Mr. Chairman, maybe I misunderstood you, and I just want to be clear, is that with regard to the non-union folks, it's up to the 3%. In no case would anyone get more than that. So it would be
I
from 0
misunderstood.
up to 3.
Okay, that's
I'm not
something.
sure if I understood.
That's something to think about. I mean, I agree with your concept of, 3% in the aggregate, but you run the township. But if you think somebody deserves, 8% and somebody else deserves 1%, I don't really have a big issue with that, as long in the aggregate, it's 3%. That's up to your discretion. I guess the one thing that should.
We're not going over 3%.
What?
We're not going over 3%.
That's not what I'm saying, Bill. You didn't understand what I said.
I heard you say 8%.
It depends on the individual, but the other thing that I did not mention is that for most employees, nobody had a pay raise since 2010. That's something that should be stated, which you've identified here.
Who was the second on that?
Second.
Bill?
Need you asked you.
I'll tell you, I didn't have enough caffeine tonight. I just want to comment. First, I want to thank administration for putting the schedule out. It's really important in the public domain to publish this information. It is somewhat blind in the sense that we haven't put names on there. I respect that. It can be somewhat uncomfortable for employees to see their actual pay rates in writing. And I do want to also reiterate what Commissioner Higgins had said, that last year the employees voluntarily took a pay freeze to help us through a tough time. And at this point, a lot of these pay raises are contractual in terms of rate and FOP, and also on the administrative side, reasonable increases that pretty much match the CPI. So I don't have any further comment. Any other board comment?
Well, I just want to take a minute and acknowledge and recognize our staff. Over the last 3, 4, 5 years, there has been a lot of turmoil. We've had a lot. We've gone down 20 employees. We've gone from, I think, 149 to 129 employees. There's been incredible turmoil in management, or turnover anyway. And basically, they work now at a different place than they worked 2 years ago. A very different place. And it's as if they've changed employers without changing employers. Now, from a taxpayer's perspective and from our perspective, it's a better place. But I think it behooves us to recognize the change that they've lived through. They've risen to the occasion. They've persevered and provided services through all of this turmoil and change. And we're now in a more stable place and with a very good future ahead of us. But I wanted to make sure we acknowledge that they've gone through. They've stuck it out, continued to give top-notch service, and I think we recognize it and want them to know that we recognize that.
All right, public comment on Resolution 2011-157. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
All right, next item on the agenda is Resolution 2011-158, amending the 2011 operating and capital plan. Bill, I'm going to try, I think I'd rather you explain it. I think I understand what's going on here, but with all the different numbers and the nets, I think I'd rather you walk us through it, and because I don't want to misspeak, and if I'm misunderstanding it, then I'll have some questions for you.
Sure. What this represents is, after going through the budget again at the end of November and identifying the various increases and decreases and aligning what the actual activity has been to what is budgeted, and correcting, or not correcting, but aligning the budget to as closely as we can match up with what's actually happening. And the reason for that mostly is in that the budget is more than just a guesstimate of what we think is going to happen. It is a legal document that has some bearing. So aligning those toward the end of the year does make some sense. In total, in the resolution, each fund is identified, and what is in front of the board tonight represents the fourth amendment to this year's budget. And each of the prior amendments are included in as well, in addition to the amendment that's being proposed tonight. So you can go back and you can track all those different changes as they've occurred throughout the years, either at the fund level, if that's what you're interested in, or there's the line item detail that goes line by line in what's changed. This particular amendment, I broke into two different categories. There's an A and a B. I'll start with category B, and that was just a reallocation of budget based on a change in accounting. Prior employee-related expenditures were lumped together and paid for in a lump sum. And the change that we made in an 11 is to break those costs out and account for them in each department so that the accounting reports have a better indication of how much departments are actually costing. So that was the goal of that. So the B column represents those amendments. There's no impact to the bottom line of the budget. The A portion of the amendment is more of the realignment from budget to actual here at the end of the year. And I just want to point out that in the general fund for 2011, we have increased the revenue estimate by over $2.6 million, and we've also increased the expenditures by just under $800,000. So if you recall, a year ago today, we were passing a budget that showed a $924,000 deficit. The way things have worked out throughout this year, based on revenues coming in much better than anticipated, mostly in the business tax side or Act 511 side, we're actually now at about a $914,000 surplus in budget. And when you look at the expenditure number, the increase there, if you'll recall, we added the township serves as the pass-through entity for the state volunteer fire relief. We are required to deposit those funds and then turn around and submit them to the fire company. And then the fire company has very strict restrictions that they have on which those can be used. But for our purposes, it's a pass-through. In prior years, it wasn't something that was reflected on our financial statements. This year, we decided to show the in and the out. So of that, just shy of $800,000, a little over $600,000 of that represents the fire relief. And the other increases and decreases are in those line items that if you go line by line, you can identify what those changes were. And a lot of those were discussed in these meetings regarding Hurricane Irene, the legal fees, the situation there, the code red, increases with the increases and decreases with the reorganization, those types of things. So those are all identified in the line items, and hopefully the variance notes help shed some light on that. And
Bill,
then the-
could I just ask you a question? on
Sure.
Do we know the outcome of our request to the federal government for reimbursement on Irene?
We
Or is
don't. That is something that I look forward to getting work on tomorrow, now that the budget's adopted, so. I know the clock is ticking on that. And then basically, if you go fund by fund, the amendments up and down, for the most part, are the same. If the revenues went up by a certain amount, the expenditures followed the same track, or vice versa. So what is in front of the board tonight is the final amendment to the budget and would reflect what's in the column A and column B of 2011-158.
So of the $800,000 increase in expenditures, 600,000 of it was a pass-through. So net, we spent just over, a little bit more than 200,000 beyond what we had proposed at the beginning of the year. Some of that was, I think, if I recall correctly, a tough winter, and some of it was Irene and maybe other things, but that's sort of the net. Is that fair?
That is the net. That's the bottom line.
Move the approval of the resolution.
Second. So, Bill, these numbers, again, don't match exactly the monthly numbers. That's just because they were on a different day, again?
Well, I didn't incorporate them in version 3 of the budget because, again, this wasn't adopted yet, and I didn't want to make any assumptions.
Right, okay.
So the numbers that are in the amended budget in the version 3 document for the 12 are what had been previously approved.
Right, right. And, you know, this is still a year-end forecast, basically, the numbers that we have in here. Are we going to, when we finally have our year-end numbers, have another amendment, or is this it?
This will be it.
Okay.
Any amendments, or the actual activity as it ends up, those differences will be variances.
They'll just be a variance. Okay.
Any board comment at this point on Resolution 2011-158? Public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
That's it for finance and audit.
Steve, you want to bring us up to on the leaf collection? I know they're working
Thank you,
Saturday
Commissioner
overtime.
Higgins.
You want to tell us where we are there?
We are, probably in the next couple days, we'll be finishing District 2, and we are in District 3 now. These are all final leaf collections. We've already gone through everything one time. So if all goes well, and equipment holds up, and the weather holds up, I mean, the guys are working really hard out there. I got to tell you, it's a tough job. They're doing a great job at it. By the end of next week, we should be where we should be, which is complete. That's always barring weather or breakdown.
I noticed that a few properties, after we're all done, decide to do their leaves and put them out. Do we go back and do those, or how's that work?
It all depends on the location, but the general rule is, once we've gone by the second time, that we're not coming back, because it's really not fair to the other residents who are waiting for the second time of their leaf pickup for us to be delayed going back because folks, for whatever reason, didn't have a chance or didn't get their leaves out there. So we try to adhere to that as best as possible.
But historically, we've always gone back and picked up every last leaf.
I know in District 1, because it is the first district, we have gone back later because it is the first district picked up, and there are occasions where we do. But I'll be honest, when folks call me, I tell them leaf collection has passed.
Steve, I've had someone ask me if they miss leaf collection, can they put out their leaves in bags on, you know, just as other brush on Wednesdays?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Are we going to, when our leaf collection is over, are we going to drop a note off to residents that put their leaves out late and are not going to be picked up, saying that we will pick, if you bag them up or trash can them up, we will take them on Wednesdays?
Commissioner Spengler, we have been telling folks that as they call in.
Okay.
And in response to where we have gone back in the past, if we catch up and we've done all 2 rounds through each district and the weather's good and the time is there, we will go back and get some of those other piles. There's no doubt.
Mr. Chairman, also, this last year, I know that there was a time in which there was a property that continued to put leaves out at, and I asked the Public Works Department to pick them up and place them back on the property, which they did do.
What I would suggest, Steve, is there an opportunity here do we have the resources maybe to offer leaf collection for a fee after the 2 pickups are completed, assuming just a handful of these occur? Could we offer to have them picked up for a fee rather than have those leaves blow around and just create traffic issues?
Really, at this point, it's all weather dependent. You know, we're shooting to be done by Christmas. If the weather stays with us and we don't have a bad winter, we have time to do some of that. If the snow starts, you know, literally for the past 2 months, every person in Public Works has either been on trash detail or leaf detail, except one sewer person who does our markouts and checks our stations. So there's not a lot of leeway from a personnel standpoint to do much. Once we're done, if that weather does stay with us, we try to do some projects that we were unable to do throughout October, November, and part of December because of the leaves. I mean, I would definitely investigate that. My recommendation would be hopefully we could, we do advertise it on the website, is that more folks could check out the website and try to get their leaves out when the collection comes. That's probably the best way to go about it, is to just have everybody do that. That would be the easiest, I think, most cost-effective way about it.
Okay. So the system this year is that we are going to continue to pick up leaves as long as we can. And once we stop picking up leaves, we will notify anybody that calls us, or if we see a pile of leaves, we'll drop a note off and say, we're no longer collecting leaves, you have to put them out, bag them up, and put them out on Wednesday.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's it under...
Thank you, Commissioner Spengler. Commissioner Nagel, Parks and Recreation.
Public comment?
Oh, yes, please come up.
Sorry.
I assume this is on leaves?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Sarah Pilling, I live in Garrett Hill, and I walk as much as I can. I understand that the leaves are in the street, but there is a real tension. I will specifically identify in Beaupre where the leaves are on both sides of the street, and the only way you can walk is you have to walk in the middle of the street. And I just want to bring that to your attention. It is really dangerous, particularly as some of the cars that are coming around some of those curves, they don't see us, and we have no place to walk. And I'm going to put out the thought, why are we still putting leaves in the street? Why aren't we bagging them like Lower Marion Township and then having them pick up the bags? It would be a lot simpler and it would be a lot safer. I specifically reflected the last time I was doing this because I brought it to you before about the staff of the Rosemont retirement community having to walk through that neighborhood at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning, and when the leaves are out there, they're walking in the middle of the street, and it is a really serious, potentially serious situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Steve, also, in past years, we've announced some of the standards for putting leaves out. I do notice in Beaupre, the neighborhood that Sarah's referring to, that I see leaves 6 feet into the roadway, and I believe the ordinance requires or allows only for 3 feet or some distance from the curb.
What we'll do, Commissioner Fisher, is next year, I mean, we're obviously on the tail end, is try to put forth those requirements earlier and more often so folks know that. Beaupre, no doubt, is a definitely heavily leafed area, for lack of a better term. The guys did a great job. Beaupre is done now. But in that interim period there, it does get, the roads do narrow down somewhat.
But is it on my street, I'm supposed to put them in between the curb and sidewalk and not on the street? Don't we have some streets where you're not supposed to put them on the street?
That's correct, and that's noted when we do advertise, and a lot of that are the state roads where they are not supposed to be put in the streets, Conestoga, Sproul, and such. More of our township streets, we do ask them to be put in there, except somewhere, depending on the parking and the narrowness, the width of the road. And that's denoted on when we put the advertisement out on the website.
Thank you. Great job. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
You guys do a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Nagel, Parks and Rec.
There were a couple of items at the Parks and Rec Board last week that I wanted to bring up. One of the discussions had to do with as I mentioned earlier, the fact that the school maintenance agreement has not been renewed. There's a lot of concern in the community that people don't know what to do, and we are going to be talking about that. But Parks and Rec suggested that the township and the school district get some representatives together, and they volunteered that they would also work with you to figure out a way to coordinate those activities. Another item came up was Parks and Rec Board had been approached about the creation of a comprehensive pedestrian and cycling transportation committee, if you will, thinking that since Parks and Rec already had a trails committee, that that would be the appropriate place. Parks and Rec has recommended that that would best be a standalone committee, and then they would dissolve the Parks and Rec Trails Committee that exists currently. So that's something else we need to talk about in the future. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is a group of folks were there talking about the use of, they were saying Roundup, which is a trade name, but that type of chemical for weed control. And I would like to see us set up something between your folks, Steve, and maybe we get somebody from EAC and Parks involved. The reason when we instituted our organics program many years ago, we had eliminated the use of glycophosphates, which are the Roundup type chemical. And I had a lengthy discussion with Paul Totaro about it, and I understand the issues. But my personal opinion is I'd like not to use it, but I think we need to really understand the operational impacts and what it means from a taxpayer standpoint. If we were, are there other products available? These folks handed a packet. Tammy, did you get that packet?
I did not get a
Okay.
copy of the packet.
I have that.
Okay, a packet of
Commissioner.
information regarding other possible products. So it's something else I'd like to see us move forward with. Thanks. That's all for Parks and Rec. Tammy, you want to talk about any upcoming activities or?
Sure. We're actually still taking registrations for the Radnor Youth Basketball Hoops Clinic for first and second graders, so be sure to sign up for that. It starts in January, first Saturday in January. We also have the winter and spring 2012 recreation brochure. It's currently up online at our website, right under Parks and Recreation on the Programs and Excursions page. We also have a winter basketball camp that'll be taking place at Sulpizio Gym from 9 to 12 p.m. We also have a holiday lights contest out there for businesses and residents in the town, and we encourage everyone to participate by submitting a photocopy of their light displays or holiday displays at their homes or businesses. And of course, for LED lights and non-light displays using energy, you'll get extra points. Those submissions are due on January 3rd. You can submit them directly to our department, to my email address at tcohen@radnor.org. And then we also have our first of a monthly wellness series taking place at the Wayne Art Center this Wednesday, December 14th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Wayne Art Center. As I had mentioned, it's a part of the Manager's Challenge, a part of Bob Zinkowski's quest under the phase 2 of his challenge to improve health and wellness, not only for himself, but for others within the community. And the topic as part of this first wellness series is making it through the holidays. So be sure to check that out at the Wayne Art Center on Wednesday. And that's it for Parks and Recreation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
John,
That's all.
John, I think that we have to get together at the beginning of the year, the school district and the commissioners and the school directors and the staff and the sports teams so that we can find out exactly how this is going to affect, changing the maintenance agreement. Also, there's $30,000 worth of lights that on school property that we collect about $10,000, and we've been covering the $20,000 for Enki and the tennis courts and also the Loop A and Loop B. So we really have to get to that at the beginning of the year. So I think you and I should get together and move something forward on that as soon as
Absolutely.
possible.
Yeah, it has to be done. Assuming that the school maintenance agreement is history,
Yeah.
then we have to know how we're going to operate in the future.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of discomfort with the sports
Yeah.
teams.
Well, there's fields, and there's a large administrative cost that we've been covering.
Right.
And the school just has to understand we got to figure out how we're going to do all this so that we can work with our sports community so they have the facilities they need to provide their programs.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Bill. That's the end of the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Nagel. Commissioner Curley, Community Development.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Commissioner Schaefer, Library.
Yes, I have one announcement. The library has just had some doors, some automatic doors installed. They are to bring the library in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. They were funded partially by a state Keystone grant, and also from some of the bond money that we have left over from the library bond from years ago. But they're up and running, they're in there, so go check them out. You can now get in and out of the library without touching a door. And the library would like to pass along thanks to Steve Norsini and his staff because they got them in just in time by the end of the grant deadline and did a great job. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer. I have no report under public health, but I do want to wish and thank the public health members for their service this past year. They've done a lot of great work. Any old business? Any new business? Public participation. Last chance this year to say something in public.
Before we adjourn, we want to wish all our employees and all the public in Radnor very happy holidays and a happy new year. We're going to go through withdrawal because we're not going to have a meeting for 3 weeks. I don't know how we're going to do it, but there's going to be a lot of withdrawal in the public and ourselves, but we'll be able to handle it. And everybody finish the year great, and we'll see you next year. I move we adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you.